You know me.
Yes.
I got to go.
I see. Energy,
Let's
baby.
go,
Love
man.
it.
Here we go. Welcome to It's Time to Lead podcast, where leaders come together to grow and get better. I'm your host, Fred Fitzgerald, and we believe that before you lead others, you must first lead yourself. So on this podcast, we focus on self-leadership. My guest for today, he is the founder and principal owner of Rodney Lawson, LLC. He is executive success partner and founder and principal owner of Rodney Lawson, LLC. He is also a best-selling author of Broken, Inspired, and Driven, which you guys can get on Amazon. He's a husband, he's a father, grandfather, friend, and he just got back from Africa. So I'm looking forward to talking to him about that. Welcome, my brother Rodney Lawson, to this Time to Lead podcast. Hey, bro.
Thank you. How are you, Fred?
Man, I'm doing great. I'm excited, man. That just from that bio, everybody start tuning in. Back in the day, we would be able to hit our tape decks when somebody would come on, right?
showing our age, our wisdom.
Exactly. That's right, our wisdom, man. So, just do me a favor, man. Just introduce yourself and tell everybody your background.
Yeah. So, I'm Rodney Lawson, and I am, as Fred talked about, I am the founder and principal owner of Rodney Lawson, LLC. I am what you call an executive success partner. So you might be asking, what is that? Well, I partner with executives at increasing their sales, uplifting their profit margin, and just developing their overall culture in the workplace. So that's essentially what I do. I have a background of, I want to say 23 some odd years at the executive level management in the corporate world, and about 33, 34 years overall in management. Started at a really early age and moved up the chain really, really fast based off of a few principles that are outlined in what Fred talks about, that self-leadership area. I have worked for multiple companies. Some great companies like MCI, like LexisNexis,
Nice,
like First Advantage. And I've led some of their customer service divisions, some of their sales organizations, some of their operational facilities, and just done some phenomenal things over the years, and decided to take all of my knowledge and experience and that background and all the training that I have and package it together and start working with companies on how they can do better themselves. But for me, it was more of a way of giving back, right? I can touch more individuals this way than helping one corporation succeed at their mission statement. Mm-hmm. So that's a little bit about my background. I am also a two-time international best-selling author, as Fred mentioned, Broken, Inspired, and Driven. And then I have a few programs. I've got 3 programs that I work with within my corporation, Rodney Lawson, LLC. The first are assessments. That's where I come in and I do an assessment on a corporation and just tell them where the gaps are, right? We look for anywhere from 3 to 7-ish areas where we can get the greatest percentage of increase in their productivity, their sales, their profit margin, or improving their culture, right? I also have my signature program, which is called the Lead Up Method. The Lead Up Method is simple. It's an acronym, LEAD. It's an acronym for locate, which is where we locate opportunities in the assessment. Engagement, where we engage the employees, ensuring that they're motivated to the maximum ability. Acceleration, where we accelerate development. I've got countless development programs, workshops, etc. And then third is where we drive. We drive accountability. And you package all of those things together, you have no other alternative but to increase your performance. So that's the second program. The third program that I offer, I've got countless workshops. I've got about 9 that I've launched immediately, where I can come in and do a full day, half a day workshop with your management team, your sales team, your service team, just to help them with their overall core skills. So that's a little bit about me, Fred. So let's dive right into this thing, man.
Yeah, man. Let's go. Let's listen. I just want y'all to know he is a walking example. He is an example of excellent experience because he has the experience and he walks in excellence. And man, with that kind of background, I know that my audience is going to be knocking down your doors, better get you to come into the organization.
Awesome.
So let's take it back a little bit. That all didn't come overnight, right? So that all
No.
didn't come overnight.
No.
And obviously, from a personal growth perspective, you didn't come out of the womb like that, right? So there was some challenges that you experienced, you know, from a younger. So what was your biggest inspiration?
Fred, it's interesting how God works. My inspiration, my drive, my motivation, it all comes from my father.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my father was my hero, but he was also my anti-hero.
Mm-hmm.
And in a lot of ways, some of the things that he did, and I write about a lot of this in my book, a lot of the things that he did motivate me and inspired me to be the person that I am because of watching what I did not want to be like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let me give you an example. I'll give you two different sides, almost as if they are an oxymoron of my father's character.
Yeah.
On one end, my father is very, very grounded, very, very value driven. Like when he gave his word, when he said something, he would do it, you know, and to the extreme at times. And I've watched this growing up. And some of the things that I watched him do were shocking because it was value principle based, right? So I developed a strong sense of character from him. Right. For example, one of the things that my parents, mother and father, have always taught my siblings and I to respect everyone, right? But you do not have to respect anyone that doesn't respect you. Okay, so ultimately, at a very early age, they're placing us in a leadership position to evaluate, you know, be your own person.
Absolutely.
Don't bow down to anyone because you're not beneath anyone. Okay. On the other side, my father was a functioning alcoholic with an addictive personality. And so he was addicted to gambling. The alcohol situations were very, very bad. And I would honestly say that because of observing that side of him, I've never taken a single drink of alcohol in my life.
Never. Wow.
Never even come close. And this is going through college. This is going through high school. This is going through business meetings and client meetings and being offered and being pressured. And it's like, no.
And always around you. It's just always present. But you had the discipline to just say no. Wow.
Yeah. It's not just the discipline, but it's the pressure after you say no.
Okay.
Right.
I see.
And that is where I go into a mode of I respect everything about you. I expect you to respect everything about me.
True. Absolutely.
And one of the things that I do not do is drink alcohol, right? Or do drugs, right? So that's where I get this type of person that formed my values and formed who I am and what I am. I've always treated people with dignity and respect in the corporate world. You know, in my leadership positions in the 30 some odd years, I've never, ever disrespected anyone, never, ever treated anyone beneath me. But I do hold people accountable to a very high standard.
Absolutely. Understood.
I just do it in a very, very respectful manner, a very fair manner. And that's why I get the results that I do. Yeah, you know, I got this quote in my office on my wall, and it says, winners surround themselves with winners. When you establish yourself as a winner and you establish yourself as having these foundational principles and values, people want to be associated with you. They want to be affiliated with you.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So
quick question.
That's the earliest memory I could probably tell you of where my values began to form in the leadership area.
This is good because that accountability piece starts very early with, like you said, with your father. And you had brothers and sisters too?
Yes, absolutely. I have an older brother and youngest. I'm in the middle. I'm a middle child.
You're middle child. Okay. So you're the middle child. So you were held accountable for them most of the times, yes or no?
We were all held accountable for each other.
Okay. Gotcha.
You know,
So in other words, from being a child and being accountable, do you see a big difference with being an adult and being accountable as well, as far as the consequence?
yeah, the only difference is as an adult, you have much more responsibility, like paying bills and paying taxes. And,
Right. Exactly. Those are a result of
and,
not
and,
being
and,
accountable, right?
and you're usually responsible for other lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether you have kids, whether you are an uncle or an aunt. As a child, your accountability world is not that vast,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But as you become an adult, you have more people that are dependent upon you. And
Mm-hmm.
this is why I know this takes us into another tangent, but I have to say this: the greatest education that you can put up here is the ability to sell yourself,
Mm-hmm.
because you have to sell yourself to get out of bed every morning, because you got people dependent on you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
True.
because you have those responsibilities, you have to learn these sales skills, because the sales skills will help you interact with individuals at getting what you want without rubbing people the wrong way. If there was one thing I could share with our culture, Fred, in the corporate world, is making sure that you build relationships.
Yeah.
And in building those relationships, make sure that you nurture them. Make sure that you're open enough to where people can see the type of individual you are. Because the problem with a lot of us from a culture standpoint, what I've had to teach the most when it comes to taking some of our culturally laden folks
Yes, sir.
off the streets
Mm-hmm.
into the corporate world, and I'm working with them and coaching them and developing them. I have to talk to them about, people have to get to know who you are so that they can feel comfortable with you. If they don't feel comfortable with you, they're not going to hire you. They're not going to promote you. You have to make them feel comfortable with you. You have to show them what your values are. Show them how good you are, right? And too many times I see people jump into a job or a situation or the corporate world, and they think that because they're exceeding at the goals, right? The sales goals, the customer service goals, that they should be promoted up the chain. And then when they don't get the job, even though they were number one in that position, they're upset, right? Rightfully so. Sometimes we see that happen with our, I want to say, non-minority colleagues,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But the difference here is this. We were always told we have to be better.
Yeah.
Okay. And one of the ways that we do that is by making sure that people are comfortable with us.
Yeah.
Right. And once they're comfortable with us, yes, we have to show that we can outperform.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times we do. But the problem is that what we need a lot of times to be successful in these environments are not taught.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not coached.
That's true.
And that's because a lot of our, non-minority colleagues, they don't teach those things because it doesn't culturally affect them. Right. Like I find myself coaching and teaching on professional dress. I find myself coaching and teaching on how to conduct yourself in a meeting. I find myself coaching and teaching on, these behavioral type of things that are not usually a part of how to increase your performance.
That's true.
And that's why a lot of companies don't focus on that.
Yep.
But they don't understand how much more results they can get if they took the time to get to know their employees and to develop their employees as individuals outside of developing them just for the job.
Right. Absolutely.
That's one of the areas that I specialize in with my company.
And just for our audience, we talk about black folks and white folks. So that we want to keep it right is because it's different. One of the things that I challenged, I was challenged with, I'm glad you said this, depending on what kind of minority you are, or where you grew up. I grew up first job as a restaurant. So we didn't have to dress. We had to put nothing on but our McDonald's outfit, right? Mm-hmm. When I got to this corporate space, it's almost like now, even though I can speak and show you my skills and I can do things with my hands and my mind, it didn't matter if I didn't look right, if I didn't look the part. Like we actually limit ourselves by not having those skills. And like you said, they're not taught. And so the fact that your company, not just your company, but you as a person have the heart. Because to me, a lot of people in leadership, they don't care enough. They say, bring them in, let's look at their resume, and they better perform the way their resume there. But it's someone that has a heart to be able to say, listen, I recognize things in you, and this is going to help you to move forward. That's what I think what makes you unique in your company. Would you agree with that? Where does that come from with you personally?
I will agree with that wholeheartedly. And let me tell you where it comes from. Um, Growing up in that household, and this is another positive off of a negative, if you will,
Absolutely, yeah.
from my father. Growing up in the household, and I didn't realize this until I went to therapy. Let me throw this out there.
Come on.
A therapist once told me that you're very, very exceptional at reading people because most people that grow up with an abusive parent, my father was also very violent,
Yeah.
with an abusive parent, they have a tendency to watch and observe very, very closely, very, very intently,
I guess.
because they learn to watch behavior so that they don't upset that person who's constantly around them. Right.
At a young
So
age,
that,
Rodney, at a young age, that's key, man.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
key.
So I developed that skill.
Sure.
But let me fast forward now how this progressed into success.
Okay.
So developing a skill, I learned to watch. When I first entered the corporate world as a sales rep, I didn't just watch the supervisors that I reported to. I watched the managers that they reported to. And I modeled myself behind what I saw. Okay. Now, when I first stepped into the corporate world, I got to tell you, Fred, I only owned one business suit, maybe 2 or 3 ties, and maybe 2 shirts. That was it. But I made it a point to improve my professional dress.
Yes.
So every pay period, every 2 weeks, I would take at least 10% of my salary, gross salary. It had to be applied towards what I would call my professional wardrobe.
There you go.
And sometimes that meant putting shirts in the cleaners and getting them out. I only bought 100% cotton shirts. To this day, that's all I do. I will put a suit on layaway. I would get a suit altered. I would get belts. I would get shoes. It had to be applied to my professional wardrobe. Now, that's tough at 18, 19 years old, and you're looking at this leather jacket. You're looking at these jeans. You're looking at the latest fashion, right? And you're on this college campus, right? So it was tough to do, but I made sure I wanted to do it because I knew what the end result would become. I knew, Fred, that people were going to judge me before I even opened my mouth just by my appearance. And so I wanted to dress like not just the supervisors, I wanted to outdress the managers. Within 6 months of being in that company, people referred to me as, Rodney, the guy that dressed real nice, right? And so it paid off. Now, let me tell you how it paid off in a much bigger way. And this is not to come across as narcissistic, arrogant, self-absorbed, or braggadocious. But I got to tell you, Fred, with just a high school diploma in the corporate world, by the time I turned 22 years of age, I was making over 6 figures.
Come on. Wow.
Yeah.
That is huge, man.
Yes.
You don't miss what he said, everybody. With a high school diploma.
Yes.
He made 6 figures. Not that you can't make it, but not only that, he became the person who was worthy of making that kind of money.
And get this.
Wow.
That's the end result where people look at, oh, wow, he's driving a luxury car. Wow, he's building a house. Wow, he's doing all of these things at a young age. But I was responsible for more than 120 people. I was responsible for generating millions of dollars for this company every year. Because of how I carried myself.
Wow. All from that. Nobody. Now, so here's the thing that I don't want everybody to miss. It's not like somebody brought you in and you had to shadow somebody. You had to become the person.
Yes.
That was from ambition. Question I have for you is, can you teach ambition, or is it impossible to teach ambition? So I wanted to jump into my 10 favorite books that I highly recommend. I recommend them because not only because they're great books, they're powerful, but I read them myself. The first book I want to recommend to you guys is my brother, Rodney Lawson. He's an international best-selling author. The book is called Broken, Inspired, and Driven. This is a really, really good book for leaders. If you have a team, if you're a CEO, if you're in the corporate America space, you definitely want to pick up my brother Rodney Lawson's book, Broken, Inspired, and Driven. How things that in his life that broke him, he used them to inspire himself, and he was driven to be successful. He has achieved all kind of success in the corporate space, but also in life.
It's not impossible to teach ambition, but let me explain something about ambition.
Okay.
Ambition only comes, and remember this, ambition only comes when you tap into what's extremely important to that individual. Okay?
Got it.
If you yourself don't understand what's extremely important to you, and you don't have a roadmap of how to get there, how can you be ambitious? You can't.
That's good.
Ambition only comes when you tap into what's extremely important to you, what you really want. And that is why, in working with individuals in the corporate world, I started there. I want to know what's important to you. What is it you really, really want more than anything? I don't care what it is. It can be something tangible, intangible, superficial, relationship wise, whatever the case may be. What is it you really want? And then whatever it is, I'm going to tie how I can develop you into the person to obtain that, right? And I'm also going to tie it to how working in this environment and accomplishing certain things will take you closer towards that goal faster or pull you further away.
Wow.
Once you see that dynamic, Fred, once you see that dynamic, then it's just a matter of me refining the tools, like reminding you here and there on why you were doing what you're doing. You see, early on in my career, one of the things I wanted to do was I wanted to purchase a Mercedes. I wanted to own a Mercedes. Okay. I'd never seen anyone with a Mercedes in my neighborhood growing up. Never. So it was a goal of mine. I took a model of a Mercedes Benz and I put it on my desk.
Oh, wow.
Very few people knew why that model was there. The ones who knew were the ones that asked. I didn't mind sharing it, but a lot of people just assume, oh, he likes cars. Well, he's not driving a Mercedes. He's driving a Ford Escort. Right? So we just assume he likes cars. But the people that asked, I told them. And here's what I said. I said, it is my goal to buy a Mercedes. And I want to be able to walk into a dealership and pay cash for the car. Not that I necessarily would do it that way, but I want to be able to do that. And so this model of this Mercedes, let me tell you what it represents on my desk. You see, I know that there are going to be days when I'm not going to be feeling well. And those are going to be the same days when the director that I report to is going to ask for this or ask for that. The employees that report to me are going to ask for this or ask for that. And I'm not going to fill up the par. I'm not going to feel my best, right? And those are the times when we have to plant our feet in the ground and ball our fists up and become the toughest.
Yes.
So whenever I was faced with those situations, I would walk into my office, sit down at my desk and take 2 to 3 seconds max and stare at that model of that Mercedes because it represents what I want to accomplish. And that is the driving force behind my ambition. Now, you fast forward a few years later, I went and purchased my Mercedes.
Come on.
And then, and look, and that's not the end of it. I ended up purchasing my wife a Mercedes 6 months later. So we both were driving Mercedes.
You both were.
Or I should say my ex-wife at the time.
Right, at the time, right.
Now,
yeah,
or now.
Yeah.
But that's an example of focusing on something and realizing that everything that I do in that office is going to take me closer towards getting that goal or pushing me further away. And I wanted to do as many things as I could to take steps towards accomplishing that goal.
The thing that I love about that is that, and thank you for explaining the ambition thing, because I used to talk to my sons about that because, this is a different generation now, Rodney, right? So we all recognize that, and everybody but the one thing that you said was you can't force your ambition on somebody else.
No.
Right? But when somebody wants something and you find out what that is, you help them to get that. And the reason, that reminds me of a story that you told me once, and I want you to share that story. This is why I love the way you lead. This is why I love the way that you connect with people. You are a connector. You are a lot of leaders lead from a policy manual, right? I always heard it said, never trust the policy manual. But you lead from the heart because you have a heart for people, you have integrity, you have standards, and you care for people. But it reminds me of the Valerie story. You got to tell the Valerie story.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah,
That's my
Valerie. Okay.
favorites, man.
So I was in a position where I was in a mid-level management position, and we were in the process of hiring some other management level folks, supervisors, team leaders, etc. And Valerie was an individual who was senior to me, but she was new to the company. She exemplified extraordinary leadership skills. But Valerie, being a double minority, she didn't dress the part from a professional standpoint that my colleagues and my peers thought would be um, conducive to her stepping into one of these supervisory roles. You see, what they didn't realize is that Valerie had a fire in her house before, about a couple weeks before she got employed with us. And she vowed to tell me in confidence, but not to share it with anyone. So I wouldn't share it with anyone. And so as we were fast forwarded, this is 6 months later, we're looking for supervisors. Valerie was the top candidate in my eyes because she had exemplified all of these leadership abilities. She took the time to coach individuals, even though she was still responsible for her own goals within the job. Mm-hmm. So we get into this meeting, and some of my colleagues did not want to give Valerie the opportunity. They wouldn't come out and say why. They just said, well, we just don't feel like she's ready. And I said, hold on a second. I said, we are in the performance business. And last I understood that she was the best performer, the best at coaching other individuals. So her performance is off the charts. So unless I'm missing something, why isn't she our number one candidate for this position? Now, we were hiring like 3 or 4 supervisors. They didn't want to give her one of them. Wow. And they said, well, we just don't feel like she's ready. And I said, I'm missing something here. What is it that you don't feel like she's ready at? Yeah, and they would not say, and I knew they would not say, so I kept pressing them.
Right.
And that's how I ended up winning the actual argument. And we ended up hiring her as a supervisor, because one of the things that our leader required is that we all agreed upon the management person we were bringing on board, because this person could potentially end up working for any of us, right? Even if it was later on down the line. Yeah. And so we ended up hiring her. And I remember our leader saying, our director saying, Rodney, I understand you're the type of individual that will work with someone in areas that a lot of other leaders wouldn't. And I said to him, don't worry about her. I'm coaching her. I'm working with her on everything she needs to become a part of to be successful in this company and in life. I said, you can bet that. Okay. So we fast forward, and we hire Valerie, and she does a phenomenal job. And as she gets higher bonuses for being in a supervisory role, she improves her professional wardrobe, right? A year later, I get promoted, and I move on from that location into a senior leader role. And I'm working at another location, and in a whole nother state. And I get this phone call, and it's from Valerie. And Valerie is crying on the phone. And she says to me, guess what, Rodney? Said, you're not going to believe this. And then it makes me emotional every time I tell this story. Valerie said, Rodney, I just won Circle of Excellence. That's where we recognize the top 1% in the company. I just won Circle of Excellence. And she said, not only that, she said, I just got promoted to manager. Look at that. And then she says to me, Fred, I remember a time when no one believed in me but you. So I just got to thank you. Yeah. Fred, when I got off the phone, I left out the office immediately, and I had to take a walk. I had to take a walk around the building. I had to wipe my eyes. I had to get my emotional state back together, because I was so overwhelmed with joy, so emotional and touched that when no one else saw something in this individual, or they saw things, but they didn't want to give her an opportunity because they weren't willing to coach her in the areas that she needed to be coached in. I stood there and I helped her.
Yeah.
And Fred, that's where I get my greatest sense of satisfaction, seeing people succeed, helping people.
Yeah.
Because I know that I was blessed with that. And as long as I do that, I don't have to worry about the finances. They'll come.
Absolutely. You help. It's a great
That's the
signature.
story
That's
of
the story.
Valerie. And to this day, like I say, it still makes me kind of emotional.
Man, that blessed me. That's one of the stories that you shared with me a few months ago. And I tell you, the reason why I love that because being in leadership, personal growth, and teaching things of that nature, I find that a lot of people were just like the manager that you said. They said you're the type of person who would work with someone like that. They knew who to send them to, but they weren't willing to do it themselves because they probably couldn't.
Not only that, Fred, they were holding them back because of that.
Mm,
Let me give you a statement.
okay.
If you're not at the dinner table, you're on the menu.
Attention, all professionals. Are you looking to boost your communication skills and connect with others with confidence and character? But I'm inviting you to join our 10-week mastermind, Connecting and Communicating with Confidence. In this interactive mastermind, you're going to learn practical strategies and techniques for improving your communication skills and building strong relationship with others. I'm going to guide you through a series of lessons over the next 10 weeks and exercises that are designed to help you to develop your communication skills and build your confidence. That's right, build your confidence. Don't miss this opportunity to take your communication skills to the next level. So you're invited to join us with our Connecting with Confidence Mastermind. I see you guys on the inside.
If you're not at the dinner table, you're on the menu.
That's
So
good.
if you're not in the boardroom, if you're not in the manager room discussing, having these discussions on who gets promoted, who stays with the company, who's let go in a reduction in force, right? If you're not at the discussion table, then you're on a menu, meaning that they're discussing you. Because you sit at the dinner table and you discuss, when you go out to a restaurant, you look at the menu, you're discussing what you're going to have.
Right.
Oh, I'm going to have the filet mignon. Oh, don't get the chicken, right? So
Exactly.
there's positive things on the menu
That's right.
that you like and things that you don't like on the menu.
That's
But
right.
in order to be able to make the decision to have an impact, you got to be at the dinner table. You got to be at the restaurant. You see what I'm saying?
That's it. That's it.
And so that's been my thing. Like I've when I've heard people complain about this and that, and I said it's simple: get promoted.
That's it.
Get promoted so you can make the decisions yourself, so that you can help influence the decisions in the right way. And that's always been my motto. And I've held on to that, Fred, even though there were times when I felt like I was passed over for opportunities and wanted to walk, wanted to leave. But I stayed because I knew that the influence that I had over the hundreds of people that I had touched would look at me different if I just decided I'm throwing my hands up and I'm leaving because this ain't happening the way that I want it to happen.
Right.
And I ended up, showing them that eventually you stay in there, you continue to grind, you work on what you need to work on. And what I mean by that is learning to understand what your blind spots are and working on them.
Talk about that.
A blind spot, as we associate it in the corporate world, are areas that you have that people hold against you, but you don't see.
Got it.
I'll give you an example. The recent hire of the offensive coordinator, assistant, head coach for the Washington Commanders, Eric Bieniemy.
Okay.
Eric Bieniemy spent, I think, about 8 years with Kansas City as, their running backs coach. And most recently, he was their offensive coordinator for like 5 years. Okay. In 5 years, this man has won 2 Super Bowls, going to, I don't know how many AFC championships, right?
Right.
And this is the offense that he's working with, right? And what's interesting is the knock on him was, well, he doesn't interview well, number one. And number two, he doesn't call plays. Well, the 2 previous coordinators for that organization, the Kansas City Chiefs, they didn't call plays either, but they got head coaching jobs like that.
Just like that. Whoa.
Okay. So I hear this and I say to myself, there's something they're not telling that man.
Mm-hmm.
It's a blind spot.
Mm-hmm.
There's something that's going around in these circles amongst these GMs that they don't want to hire this guy as a head coach, but they're not telling him specifically what it is. That's a blind spot. And then when they said, oh, he doesn't interview well, I heard this man's interview when he took the position with the Washington Commanders, how articulate he was, how inspirational he was. And I'm like, you don't tell me this man doesn't interview well.
Right. Exactly.
I don't want to hear that. Okay. Give me something else.
Right.
Because that's not it.
Something else. Right. That's not it.
Yeah.
Right.
And at times, Fred, I've done this. You know, one of the hardest things to do was to break through the glass ceiling and move from senior director to vice president in the corporate world. And the way that I did that is I went to my senior vice president and I said, my goal is to get to the next level, to increase my responsibility, and just to have a much more overall impact, you know, on the company towards its mission. And I would like the next progression level, right, in my career, which was moving from senior director to vice president. And I said, one of the ways that I think that could help is by getting me an executive coach.
Okay.
Because I may have some blind spots that people don't see.
Okay.
Right. So they got me an executive coach to help me identify, you know, if there were blind spots and how to work on them. And just more or less what she ended up teaching me was how to market myself better. Okay. And I will say this, within 6 months of communicating that and focusing on my blind spots, I ended up getting promoted to vice president over one of two account management divisions for this Fortune 100 company.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is huge. Man.
All because I was willing to work on my blind spots, willing to identify what they are. And see, a lot of times, you know, people will see a position and they'll ask the hiring manager, the hiring director, they'll say, what are you looking for? That's not important.
Right.
What are they looking for? Because if they don't think highly of you, regardless of what they're looking for, you're not going to get the job.
That's right. Exactly.
What I want to know is, how do you feel about me in that role? So what you want to ask them is, how do you see me in that position? And if they say, well, we feel like you need to work on this, this, and this, now it gives you the opportunity to work on, to identify what you need to work on and to get moving in that area, and then follow up with them and show them what you're working on. Then you're more apt at getting that promotion or moving into that position. That's one of the keys to moving up.
That, you know, that resonates with me so much, because I really understand that people lie to you, you know, and even in the corporate space, or even in, you know, in your personal life, you know, everybody else knows that you have that blind spot, but you. Let me say this: how important do you think it is to have good relationships with people in your organization, in your family, in your marriage, that you could give people permission to tell you about your blind spots? And then on the opposite side, how open are you for someone to tell you your blind spot? Because some people are not ready to hear that they have to improve in a certain area.
That's the key right there, Fred. They have to be willing to accept and understand. And if they're not, you can speak until you're blue in the face and it won't translate. And that's why I say that it has to be tied back to that whole ambition thing. What is it you want? Because if someone is telling me that they have a goal of buying a house, but they're doing things in the office is not conducive to them moving up to make more money,
right,
to put themselves in a better position to buy a house,
right,
then I pull them aside and I say, you communicated to me this is what you want. Let me show you how what you just did is taken away from you getting what you want.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And now let's look at how we can correct that and move forward. Okay. Because there's nothing wrong with taking a step or two back, as long as you continue to take a couple steps forward and continue to move forward. Okay. We're not talking about perfection. We're talking about progress in the right direction.
Exactly. But how would you build trust with that person? You personally, you meet somebody new, or like you said, you had 150 people. Can you build that kind of trust and respect with that many people? enough where you can pull somebody to the side, or is it always?
Yes.
Because if you get pulled to the side, they're thinking they're in trouble, but they're not necessarily thinking they're going to be coached. You do that. You do that. How do you do that? So I wanted to jump into my favorite books that I highly recommend. I recommend them because not only because they're great books, they're powerful, but I read them myself. The first book I want to recommend to you guys is my brother Rodney Lawson. He's an international best-selling author. The book is called Broken, Inspired, and Driven. This is a really, really good book for leaders. If you have a team, if you're a CEO, if you're in the corporate America space, you definitely want to pick up my brother Rodney Lawson's book, Broken, Inspired, and Driven. How things that in his life that broke him, he used them to inspire himself, and he was driven to be successful. He has achieved all kind of success in the corporate space, but also in life. If you get pulled to the side, they're thinking they're in trouble, but they're not necessarily thinking they're going to be coached. You do that. You do that. How do you do that?
You set that expectation up front.
Okay.
You know, every position that I've stepped into, quite frankly, Fred, I've taken the time to have at least a 5 to 12 minute conversation with, because I want them to understand my expectations, but most importantly, I want to understand what their expectations are of me. I've stepped into operational positions where I've led facilities, and I've had, 150 people under my direction, 400 or 500 people under my direction. And I would have my admin just schedule one-on-ones, for certain days every week. I don't care if it took 6 months at times, it did.
Nice.
But I wanted to talk to every person under my direction because I wanted to be able to refer back to, that conversation if things didn't go well. Yeah. Right. Or they were, wandering in the wrong direction. Right. So that's where it starts. It starts with getting to know them and allowing them to get to know you. Right. And then once they see that, oh man, these, I've had it's funny. I've had individuals say, wow, we've never had a VP like you. We've never had a director like you. You were so down to earth. You're you're easy to talk to.
Yes, sir.
Like we were thinking we couldn't come to you and talk to you about issues that were going on with our manager and our supervisor, but man, we can come talk to you and you'll make sure that not only do you fix them, but you make sure that they don't retaliate against us. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Right, exactly. And then they took it one step further. And then if it's something that we're doing wrong, you will correct us and say, no, that came from me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm the one that drove that. Don't look at your manager, your team leader, your department manager, your director. No, I'm the one that issued that. Now let me explain why it's important.
That's good.
Why we do it this way. Yeah. So yeah, relationships is all about being authentic and getting to know people. And I don't have a problem with being authentic. I mean, I'm an open book.
Yep.
That's
good. So when leading yourself, transitioning from right on that on the relationship side, how important is it lead in your marriage, and how do you translate the corporate skills to your marriage or your relationship with people like friends and family? Have you found that you can use those same skills, or have you learned something to make those relationships better? How does it work for you?
It's funny you bring that up. I want to say that I feel like I learned a lot in that area, because a lot of the skills that I applied in the corporate world and what I learned in that world, I didn't apply in my relationships in my personal life.
Same here.
And sometimes, it's a lot tougher.
Yeah.
It's a lot tougher because you're closer to that individual and that individual is closer to you.
Yep.
And what happens is you develop these unwavering expectations for that individual, and they develop expectations for you. And when they're not met, like the smallest thing, you want to just react. Okay. And what I had to do was I had to learn to apply the same principles in my relationships that I have in my personal life. Mm-hmm. Like I'll give you a very, very different, but one that will draw to the conclusion of what I'm talking about.
Okay.
My ex-wife and I, after a long period of time of dating and being engaged, we get married, and it didn't work out very early on. Like the marriage was done in 6 months.
Yeah.
Okay. Even though we had known each other for, over 13 years.
Mm.
It did not work out because we did not have the same core values.
Got it.
I'm not going to get into, whose values were what and what's good, what's bad. I'm just going to say that they weren't the same.
Got it.
Right. And so what I had to do was I had to learn that once I understood more about myself, I had to find someone who had values that were conducive to support mine.
Got it.
And that's the wife that I have today. That's why it works extremely well. It's easy, right? Whereas before it was difficult.
It's night and day.
But see, here's what's interesting, Fred. In the corporate world, I always hired individuals based off of their values and character. So if I'm bringing you into my environment, right, I would look at values, character, then I would look at experience and skill set. Most companies hire off of experience and skill set looking at a resume. You're not going to you can have someone that's got all the experience in the world and got all the skill sets, but their values might tell them that it's okay to steal. And if you bring that person in your environment, you're going to have a problem, right? So because I had chosen an individual that we didn't have the same values, right? The marriage didn't work out. Right. But in the corporate world, I was successful because I was surrounding people that had values that were conducive to mine, that had the right type of character. And then I would go in and I could teach skill set, right?
There you go.
If they didn't have it, but if they had it, then that was a plus, right? So once I applied those same principles to my professional life, it worked out extremely well. It's working out extremely well. I will say that.
Big shout out to your amazing wife. And how has her support for you been major as far as since you've been in a relationship prior to marriage, and just talk about how great she is? Just give her a quick shout out.
Well, I will refer to her like I did right from the beginning as my angel.
Come
on. My wife, Clea, is my angel. And that is because she helped guide me through difficult times, as a friend first. And, with the opportunity that we could grow this or we could continue, just being friends. I'm okay with either, is how she placed it with me. Right. But the support that she gives and the values of loyalty. Because I'm so value driven based off of what I got from my father, the one thing that I realized in talking with my therapist is that I needed someone that was extremely loyal. Excellent. And I would just say that, in my past relationships, those individuals didn't have the level of loyalty that I needed to survive and be successful in a partnership, a relationship that could grow and thrive and do wonderful things. And, my wife comes to the table with more loyalty than I've ever seen anybody possess.
It's powerful, man. Big shout out to Aunt Claire. I definitely want to give her a shout out. So I got some personal questions I want to ask you, bro. I wrote
absolutely.
And,
go ahead. Shoot.
These are some good ones, man. So how did you learn to love on people so much?
I think that comes from my mom. My mom has always been and always to this day, she's very, very giving, very, very loyal. What she does comes from the heart. There is no malice behind it. There is no quid pro quo. You do this for me and I'll do this for you. She does things because it's the right thing to do and she believes in it. And I've always watched her being observant, and it's always been a part of me, just this good feeling inside that I'm helping people. I always say, Fred, that there are two types of people, actually 4 types of people in this world. But they're categorized into 2 areas. They're givers and they're takers.
Yeah. Come on.
Okay.
Yes.
And there are positive I'm sorry, there are aggressive givers and passive givers, and there are aggressive takers and passive takers. Your narcissists, your bullies, those are your aggressive takers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the only thing that keeps them in check are the aggressive givers, because they will stand up to those individuals. You know, when you see someone not being treated fair, when you see someone being taken advantage of, when you lend an arm to help someone because they're not on a level or in a space you're in, that's a giver helping someone, right? And sometimes it's standing up to a situation or standing up to an individual, right? That's an aggressive giver standing up to usually an aggressive taker.
Yes. Wow.
So I was just raised by my mom and watching my mom and possessing that value of being what you would call an aggressive giver.
Absolutely. Listen, I try to be an aggressive giver myself, but I could tell you this, sometimes you fall into the passive takers when you don't even realize it. And I think that's why you know, you being aware of who you are and being intentional about you know, your behaviors is so important. And I'm just glad that your mom had a heart to be able to well, the fact that she birthed you, one, because you would not be here without her, but also the fact that you picked up those great qualities from her, and it translates across the board, because I'm sure everybody in my audience is listening right now. They can already tell that even though you have the credentials, right, you also have the attitude of a winner, but you also have a heart of a lion and a heart of a leader. That's what true servant leadership is. And sometimes the servant leadership that we say we're a servant leader, most of the times we're trying to serve other people, but we also have to recognize that sometimes we got to serve ourselves. And serving ourselves means being able to get to know who you are. So that's so important. So when you're 80 years old, what will matter most to you?
How many people have helped?
Why is that? Tell me more about why that's important.
You know, a colleague of mine who I adore, rest her soul, she has passed on, and we were very competitive and competing against each other as senior leaders, you know, for this company. She said to me one time, she said, your best leaders are evaluated by how many people they've promoted.
Yeah. Promoted. Wow.
And she said, so many times people look at the numbers and they look at this and they look at that, but it's how many people have you promoted? You know, and she gave some examples of individuals, you know, other colleagues in a company that were looked upon as being good at this, good at that, but they haven't promoted anyone. So what are they going to be remembered by? You know, and then she gave examples of individuals who promoted a lot of people that knew their skill set, so that they didn't have a problem with moving someone on to a higher position because they knew they could take someone else and develop them to do just as good of a job. Right? When you have that confidence, you don't have a problem promoting people on. And so when I think about that, you know, in the corporate world, how many people have I coached? How many people have I developed? How many people are in key positions because of things that I've taught them?
Yeah.
Right. And this goes back all the way to 1987.
Wow.
If I can be frank with you.
Come on.
So when I'm 80 years old and I look back on my life, what's going to be important? How many people I've touched in a positive way? How many people I've developed? How many people I've coached? How many people I've helped? That's it.
That's good, man. Next question I got for you is, which is worse, failing or never trying?
Oh my goodness. That is probably one of the easiest questions to answer. It's worse to never try.
Yeah.
You know, you can't succeed in life. You can't succeed in anything without failing. You can't. You have to know there's a process of stepping stones of where you went wrong and what happened and how you got knocked down, you know, in order to get back up and continue to move forward. But if you don't try, then you're just laying on the ground. You're not moving anywhere.
You ain't doing nothing. Yeah, that is a simple one. I think I think also that the failure is necessary in order
Hmm.
to be able to move forward. Because just think about when we were all babies, we didn't just get up and start walking, right? We had to fail about 10,000 times in order to be able to get, but we got it together, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
And you know how they always talk about you know when you're doing something, you're looking for the ROI, the greatest, your greatest ROI, your return on your investment. If you invest money and if you invest in time, things of that nature.
Hmm. Hmm.
But one thing that I heard recently was, and I'm going to ask this question: what was your greatest return on investment of a failure? Because most of the time, when you return on your investment of something that happened, you were successful. That makes sense. But you also learn things and you get things from your greatest return on investment from a failure. Just name one that gave you the greatest return in terms of change or growth of a failure that you may have.
Wow. I've got two. I've got a personal one and a professional one.
Okay.
Which would you prefer, or would you prefer me to elaborate on both? It's
I
up to
would
you.
prefer you elaborate on both.
Okay. Professionally, the greatest return on my investment headline is understanding how God works,
Mm.
that it's not on your time, and that He always has something better for you. It is not from my understanding. And to give you the details behind that, uh, I had helped build this operation as a number two person in charge from the ground up. About 1,000 employees at this particular location that we built from the ground up. I worked at that location for about 3 years, and my director moved on, and they were looking for another director. Obviously, people felt like it should be me that would take the job, but I didn't get it. It came open again.
Mm.
My next director moved on, and I applied for the job, and I didn't get it. And when I didn't get it that time around, the second time around, um, the hardest thing for me to accept was going back into the office and hearing 1,000 people say, "Wow, that's messed up. You should have got that job. Why are they bringing someone else in?" And mind you, the people that were brought in were both non-minorities, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And so I knew I was going to have to deal with working in this facility that was probably about 90% Black,
mm-hmm.
African American.
Yeah.
Um, I was going to hear this.
Mm-hmm.
And what I was told when I didn't get the job is that this person that's coming in is going to really, really help you. You can learn a lot from him. You'll see. And I'm thinking, yeah, right. It's lip service, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this person comes in, and when it came to leading the people, there wasn't really much this person could show me because I had all of the control of the people. Like, the people listened to me because I'd
Mm-hmm.
been there for years and had shown them things and was really close to all of the people in that facility. So what I did learn was how to promote the office politically towards winning what we would consider our Circle of Excellence Top Center Award.
Mm.
And so I ended up getting promoted 5 months later. Not only did I end up getting promoted to that director level 5 months later, but I got promoted to a location that was closer to my hometown.
Wow. That's good.
Not only did I get promoted to a location that was closer to my hometown, but I also ended up winning the Top Center Award within the first 4 months of being there, and won it twice back to back at 2 consecutive quarters at our Circle of Excellence. And I was able to do that because not just driving the performance, which I knew, or relating to the people, which I knew, it was because of learning the political aspects that I learned from this guy.
Mm.
And so it was, in my eyes, God's way of saying, while I know you want this position and it seems like you should get it, but I got one more thing I need you to learn so that when you get there, you can be the best of the best.
Yes. 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 Yes.
And that's exactly the way it played out. So, it was where it seemed like a setback. it ended up being something that really, really helped me when I look back upon it. And then the second example is simple. My failed marriage and what I learned from that situation, learning about myself, and then, taking a couple steps back and saying, you know what, I'm not choosing my partner anymore. God, I want you to choose. I cannot drive this vehicle any longer because I'm picking up the wrong type of individual. And it was almost as if God said, okay, sit in the passenger seat. I got in the passenger seat. He gets into the driver's seat and he says, the first thing I want you to do is understand yourself. Once I understood myself, he said, now that you understand yourself, it's easier for you to understand what type of partner is suitable for you. And I came up with 4 things: someone that was loyal, someone that was affectionate, someone that had great transparency, and someone that had strength. And so those became our 4 pillars, right? And so when I became intentional at dating, or whatever the case may be, I wouldn't date. I wouldn't have a relationship with anyone unless they showed those 4 pillars. And my wife to this day is the individual, my angel, who showed me those 4 pillars early on. And so she was the only person that I was willing to open up my heart to. And so just learning from that experience and what I went through, thinking I knew it all, but then failing right at it.
Yes, sir.
And then pulling things back and allowing God to take the driver's seat. It paid big dividends. So those are the 2 examples that I would give you.
What a greatest return on your investment is that angel. That's what I'm talking about. That's powerful. Thank you.
Couldn't have it without being obedient, though.
That's true. That obedience is. They say obedience is better than sacrifice. I guess that's right. That what they say. I've actually heard it. So I have someone right now who was in power. Who was a manager, and they sent me an email from listening to one of the last episodes, and they have a leader there's someone in power that's actually trying to sabotage them, trying to get them either lose their job or to make them look incompetent. They're not really big into personal growth. What kind of advice would you give them with your 30 years of experience in leadership, on how they can navigate this and have it come out on the opposite side in their benefit?
Well, there's only 1 or 2 ways this can go, right? Either you stay there and you work through the situation, or you leave. And I have coached individuals to do both, depending on the situation, right? Once I understand, more of the layout, then I give them the direction that I feel as though they should go in. The first thing that I would do is find out more about the individual that's in power. Okay. Number 1, I would find out, because they're in a higher position, it doesn't mean that they're in a position of power. Find out how much influence they have in the company. If they've got a lot of influence in the company and you can't side with their values, then it's best to leave.
Absolutely.
Find another job, find another opportunity. If they're in that elevated position, but people really don't respect them, I'm not talking about the people that are beneath them. I'm talking about the people that are their peers and above them. If they don't really respect them, then their word isn't going to carry much at that dinner table that I talked about.
Yeah, as you talked about, yeah.
Okay. So I would find out more about them, but then I would dive down a little deeper, number 3, and finding out more about them, find out what their issue is, right? Sometimes a person's issue with someone is because of fear. Sometimes it is because they don't know what they're doing. And sometimes, quite frankly, I hate to put it this way, they just might be a jerk.
Yeah, no doubt.
So those are the 3 things. When a person is affecting you in the wrong way in a job or whatever the case may be, it's either because of fear, it's because of inexperience. And I don't care how long you've been in the position. Experience is not that. Experience is knowing what to do when you're faced with certain situations. And you could be on a job for 5 minutes and know what to do in a certain situation and have experience in that situation. You could be in a job for 5 years and not know what to do in certain situations, right? So you don't have experience in that area. So So it's their lack of experience, or sometimes some people, just get a sense of gratification out of seeing other people hurt. Right. And that's what I would consider a jerk. So find out which of those three this individual is. Then it would tell me exactly how I would go about it. If it is fear-based, then what I would probably do is try not to violate things that are going to cause more fear. I'll give you an example. I was coaching an individual in a account role whose boss was giving him a hard time. And he was giving him a hard time because he was failing in his role. Right. So it was trickling down. So that person was operating out of a position of fear and was placing more pressure on the person that I was coaching. OK, so what you can do in that situation is you can try and partner with them and help them be more successful, so they're not feeling as uncomfortable from a fear perspective of losing their job, even though they're your boss.
Got it.
OK,
makes sense.
Or, that person could be operating from a position of experience, like they're violating things that they don't realize, and having to sit down one-on-one and talking about how, when this happened, it affected me this way. Can in the future we work together so that we don't violate this, right?
Absolutely.
That's if a person is operating from a lack of experience. That's how I would approach it. And if they're operating from a place of just being a jerk, then guess what? There's not really much you can do other than move on.
Absolutely. Yeah. And moving on sometimes is the answer, right? That's what I love. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, that would be the advice I would give. But you have to figure out the person who's causing that pain for you first. You have to figure out why they're doing it. I always say, like, when things happen, I don't necessarily look as much at what happened, but I want to understand why it happened. Okay? Not necessarily what a person did. I'm going to look at what they did, but I want to understand why they did it that way. That tells me exactly how I move going forward with them.
Thank you so much. So the last thing I want to do is wrap up with this, because you and me, you know how we do. We can go.
Yeah.
But I want you to talk about this program that you have, this new program that you have, the lead up method, as much as you can. And then if you have a company right now that's looking for you particularly, what would you say to them, and how would you kind of pitch to them exactly why they need to bring you into the organization? And tell us a little bit about that, about the lead up method.
Okay, well, I'll start with the latter first.
Okay.
Companies that are looking for me, if you're looking for someone to come in and just get results, whether it's sales, whether it's operational efficiencies, whether it's customer care, forming a better relationship with your customers. If you're looking for any of those things, I am your guy. Now, why would you hire me or bring me on board as a consultant? 3 things: my experience, my background, and my programs. Now, we've talked a lot about my experience. We've talked a lot about my background. So let me focus on, I would say, my programs, or in this particular case, my program, the lead up method. It's a program where I start off doing a holistic assessment. I look at your business in a multitude of areas. I look at your hiring practices. I look at your onboarding practices. I look at your current employees and their performance. I look at your management team. I look at your performance management process, right? And all of these factors usually take place in every company, but usually there are gaps. And what I do is I come in, and once we finish that assessment, which is where we locate the opportunities, that's the L for the lead up, then we look at how we engage the employees, right? Everybody wants engaged employees, but a lot of people don't know how to get it, okay? The way that you get engaged employees is you have to create an environment that's welcoming that engagement, okay? I can show you how to do that, right? Whether it is bringing employees on board, what to look for, what to hire for, and weeding out employees that may not fit, okay? The next thing we do is we want to accelerate. We want to accelerate development. What type of development practices do you have in place? Are your leaders following up with everyone in the company to get those results? How are they developing? How are they coaching? What do they have in place when it comes to taking their skill sets to the next level. Because I'm a firm believer that if you want to change your environment, you have to affect three things: the effort that they put in, the skill set that they have, or the strategy that you have in place. Okay. I show you how to do that all within the confines of accelerating development. And then the last area, the D, is we want to drive accountability. Everybody has to have a certain level of accountability. You can't just put engaged employees in place. You can't just put developmental programs in place through accelerating them and not have some form of accountability, right? So once you drive accountability with all of those things, you have no other alternative but to see maximum performance, maximum output. And I've done this, Fred, and I got to tell you that, usually on the lowest case scenarios, I've seen a 35% increase. But in some instances, I've seen as much as like a 212% increase. Now, if I'm coming into an operation and I'm helping you refine these things, and let's say we get a 35% increase in your performance, okay? Usually that's going to mean millions of dollars. So the investment cost for me coming in and doing something like that is extremely minimal when it comes to the results that's given on the back end. So hire me as a consultant if you're looking for increasing your performance in a multitude of different ways, a multitude of different areas. And I will come in and I will show you how to drive performance by utilizing my lead up method.
You heard it first from Rodney Lawson, executive success partner and founder and principal owner of Rodney Lawson LLC. My brother, I appreciate you. That was phenomenal. I don't think any other company who expects to move forward in 2023 would do well to hire anybody else but you. And we're going to update our show notes. We're also going to put that on our YouTube channel as well, so y'all can see that. And this is the type of person that you want to have not only in your organization but in your life, because he doesn't just come with the facts and figures. The facts and figures are impressive. He comes with standards, excellence, character, and a heart. I mean, you want to put somebody like that in your organization. So I'm honored to be able to have you on the show today. I'm honored to have you as a friend, you and I, Claire, and I just appreciate you, spending some time. I know time is money, and we know through our brother Myron Golden that time and money ain't the same. Time is more than money. So I appreciate and honor you for being able to be here on today. How can people get a hold of you?
How to get in touch with me? It's simple. You can book a 20-minute complimentary call with me. Just go to bookwithrodney.com.
Excellent. And you also have a Facebook group. Talk about that, and also talk about where they can actually get your book.
Yes, I do have a Facebook group called Servant-Led Leaders, and that's where we're just recruiting and having dialogue around leaders that are serving others. And my book is available on Amazon at Broken, Inspired, and Driven. You can just pull it up or pull up Rodney L. Lawson, and the information for my book will come up for you.
Awesome. And you also, now that you're an entrepreneur, you have a message for entrepreneurs as well. So y'all want to follow him because he definitely, if you're an inspired entrepreneur, or if you're an entrepreneur that has a team as well, and you're having chaos in your team, you need to bring it together. You want to be able to get with him as well, because he will teach you the principles and the strategies that you need based on experience. I mean, he's been through it. So you definitely want to be able to contact my brother Rodney Lawson, Rodney Lawson LLC. And again, bookwithrodney.com. Get on his calendar, because I'm telling you, this is exactly what you want to do. And from whether you're a professional, corporate level person, or a person who just is kind of stuck, and you're already a multimillionaire, but you need the type of leadership to get you to exactly where you need to be, Rodney Lawson LLC. He's the one that you want to get. Bookwithrodney.com. All right, Rodney, this has been fun, man. I appreciate you, and I learned so much. I just thank you. And you, my brother in life. All right.
All right. Likewise.
And thank you guys for tuning into the It's Time to Lead podcast, where leaders come together to grow and get better. I think we grew today, didn't we, Rod?
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Love you, bro.
All right. Love you too.
All right.